The people and places of Iowa are the sources of many compelling stories. The people who have called Iowa their home sought security and community, rights and liberty, and usually brought a desire for a better life. Many factors pulled people to Iowa, including the desire to establish farmsteads, communities, and cities. From the counties of Lyon and Lee to Fremont and Allamakee, with the 95 others for a total of 99 counties. The people of Iowa have faced challenges and sought a satisfying existence. Iowa's land has supported human life for more than 12,000 years. The state's name comes from the Iowa Nation, a people forced off this land and now of Kansas, Nebraska, and Oklahoma. These peoples hunted game and collected food. Eventually, they grew corn and lived in thriving societies. People with European ancestry and differing ideals established communities in the 1700s. American Indians traded furs for European goods, but as more non-natives arrived, the land was transformed. Mining lead brought an intensive industry to the region near present-day Dubuque in the 1790s. Eventually, wild game grew scarce and domesticated animals became common. When Iowa became part of the United States through the Louisiana Purchase in 1803, it set a new path. Congress created the distinct territory of Iowa on July 4, 1838, and Iowa became a state on December 28, 1846. Additional settlements developed on the land while descendants of First Peoples continued to live in Iowa. The Meskwaki Nation of Tama County have owned their settlement since 1857. In 1861, Iowa and the United States were plunged into a civil war over the racist ideology of slavery. Almost all Iowa men who fought did so on behalf of the Union, including Grenville Dodge of Council Bluffs. Annie Wittenmeyer of Davenport was a national leader in the care of soldiers. After the Civil War, immigrants poured into the state. Most Iowa residents sought activities for leisure that promoted self-improvement. The Chautauqua movement featured speakers on various topics and spread across the country. At this time, tensions grew over railroad rates and farm prices. James B. Weaver of Bloomfield, a former Civil War soldier, was the nominee for president for the reform-oriented People's Party in 1892. African American families came to Iowa with hopes of more equal treatment. The McKee family settled in Dallas County in the 1870s. Iowa ended legal segregation of schools in 1868 in the case of Susan Clark versus the Muscatine School Board, but Des Moines, Dubuque, and Keokuk continued to have separate schools for African Americans into the 1870s. Not all Iowans had the same liberty or rights. The period from the 1890s to the 1960s brought tumult and stability. After more than 50 years, Iowa women gained the vote in 1920. Carrie Chapman Catt of Charles City coordinated the national campaign. Economic opportunity attracted the Rivera and Ayala families to Kossuth and Webster counties in the 1920s. An international economic depression and 2 world wars shattered the lives of many Iowans. Iowa women, men, and children sacrificed at home and overseas. When the war ended, the U.S. engaged in an international rivalry with the Soviet Union called the Cold War. Iowa men served in Korea in a United Nations effort to keep peace. A nuclear war was a major concern. Roswell Garst of Coon Rapids coordinated a trip for Soviet Premier Nikita Khrushchev to his farm, and a dinner was hosted in Des Moines in 1959. Not all Iowans thought the Soviets should be welcomed. In the 1960s and 1970s, new promises of equality came forward as women gained greater opportunity in the workforce and education. Iowans helped with space exploration as University of Iowa professor James Van Allen of Mount Pleasant designed instruments to measure radiation in the Earth's atmosphere. The moon landing of 1969 inspired Peggy Whitson of Beaconsfield to pursue a career as an astronaut in the 21st century. Iowa farm families faced a crippling farm crisis in the late 1970s. Dixon Terry of Greenfield fought for justice for U.S. farmers. He was tragically killed making hay on his farm in 1989. Families lost their homes and farmsteads, and rural Iowa would not be the same. As the people of Iowa approached a new millennium, Iowa's economy grew but remained subject to local and global forces. Emerging industries, including the biofuel sector, provided new markets for corn and soybeans. Growth of Asian economies provided opportunities for Iowa businesses and farm products. Sometimes trade disputes disrupted profitability. Natural disasters further affected the state, especially flooding in 1993, 2008, 2011, 2016, and 2019. People persevered and implemented protective measures, but nature can overwhelm human efforts. Immigrants continued to contribute to the betterment of the state. Refugees from Africa, Asia, Europe, and South America have enriched our communities and made their contributions to Iowa. Iowans may not always live up to the promises of liberty, equality, and community, but we can draw inspiration from the stories of Iowa's people that reflect what is best about the United States. Explore the stories of Iowa's people and places and consider how you can promote and preserve our state's rich history.
The Iowa Department of Cultural Affairs is the state's advocate for arts, film, history, and culture. Two different agencies lead the state's efforts in promoting arts and media production. The Iowa Arts Council got its start in 1967 to encourage art and artists. Produce Iowa was organized in 2013 to promote media production in the state. Together, the Iowa Arts Council and Produce Iowa have maintained standards of excellence that began centuries ago. People of native nations, in what would become Iowa, expressed their creativity in many ways. They depicted important characters and figures in their lives through drawings and the creation of earthen mounds in the form of animals in northeast Iowa. Women added decorative patterns to their woven bags, mats, baskets, and other articles. Native artists created ornaments and accessories that reflected their personal tastes and cultural traditions. Native people continue to produce art in the state today. In the 1850s, Iowans expressed their creativity in the same ways as other American artists. Gerhard Nolan, a Dutch immigrant, painted portraits and landscapes. His massive copy of Thomas Cole's Dream of Arcadia is in the State Historical Museum of Iowa collections. Performing arts took place in many venues. By the late 1850s, international artists visited Iowa towns. Henri Vuittem, a Belgian violinist and composer, performed in Keokuk, Burlington, and Davenport in 1858. As the 1860s ended, opera houses were built to host performances with greater attendance. Andrew Clemens of Mcgregor produced astonishing art beginning in the 1870s. He learned to make designs with sand grains inside of glass bottles while a student at the Iowa School for the Deaf in Council Bluffs. His premier piece was made for his mother and featured George Washington. Iowa created its own exhibits at the 1893 Chicago World's Fair. The E.H. Andrew & Sons Decorating Company from Clinton decorated Iowa's exhibit, described as a miniature corn palace in the Agriculture Building. Motion pictures came to Iowa by 1895. The December 4, 1894 Davenport Morning Democrat encouraged readers to see the living pictures in Edison's kinetoscope at Sheriff's Pharmacy. This new media became common across Iowa by 1896. Iowa artists gained prominence in the early 1900s. Nellie Walker of Moulton created a statue of James Harlan of Mount Pleasant for the U.S. Capitol in 1910. By 1930, Grant Wood was recognized as an important artist. Murals in post offices and other locations supported by the Works Progress Administration employed artists and reminds us of how art contributes to quality of life for generations. In the early 1900s, Frank and Indiana Britton of Washington, Iowa, produced shows featuring slides and some of the earliest films. In fact, Washington's Graham Opera House, where they began showing moving pictures in 1897, is recognized as the oldest continuously operating cinema theater. Oscar Michaud got his start as the nation's first major black film producer in Sioux City. Centerville was the site of Norma Talmadge's 1921 film, The Wonderful Thing, while Southeast Iowan Phil Stong's book, State Fair, was a popular film in 1933 and 1945. Meredith Wilson of Mason City saw his production, The Music Man, go from stage to screen in 1962. In 1967, Iowa established a federally recognized state arts agency, with funds from the Iowa legislature matched by the National Endowment for the Arts. During the same era, outdoor sculptures, also funded by the NEA, were added to many Iowa communities, including Ames, Sioux City, and Waterloo. The Art in State Buildings program of 1970 guaranteed that a small portion of funds for the construction of new buildings would include public art. This program lasted until 2017. In 1969, Greenfield, Winterset, and Des Moines became filming locations for Cold Turkey, the only film directed by Norman Lear. Lear proclaimed his experience in Iowa helped launch his successful television career. The farm crisis provided a backdrop to the site of the film Country in 1984, starring Jessica Lange and Sam Shepard. The Iowa Film Office, created that year with Wendell Jarvis as its director, began a new era for film in Iowa. Beginning in the late 1980s, the arts reflected social and demographic changes in our state as efforts at diversity, equity, accessibility, and inclusion in the arts increased. During this period, the Iowa Arts Council was well known for its touring arts team program and teaching and performing artist rosters. Additional programs included artist fellowships, creative placemaking, and film and media partnerships. The Iowa Arts Council also responded to natural disasters, including the 1993 floods and coronavirus pandemic of 2020, by supporting artists and arts organizations with relief aid and recognition. The late 1980s and 1990s remain a high point for movie making in Iowa. Popular films included Field of Dreams in 1989 and The Bridges of Madison County in 1995. The Field of Dreams movie site, near Dyersville, has proved resilient for attracting people from around the world, with the help of occasional cast reunions and a group of local ghost players. The presence of stars Meryl Streep and Clint Eastwood, with Eastwood also the director, has helped The Bridges of Madison County remain popular. The Iowa Arts Council has supported Iowa artists, arts education, and art appreciation for more than 50 years. Its programs shape the entire state and serve artists of diverse backgrounds and talents. From Poetry Out Loud and Iowa Arts Month, to support for high school students and ongoing funding programs, including Arts Build Communities and Cultural Heritage Project grants, the Iowa Arts Council is committed to cultivating creativity, learning, and participation in the arts. On May 1st, 2013, then Governor Terry Branstad relaunched a new film office called Produce Iowa, State Office of Media Production, as an official division of the Iowa Department of Cultural Affairs. Its mission is to promote and facilitate media production and develop a more sustainable creative economy. Through crew directories and location databases, Produce Iowa connects producers to our state, while helping Iowans raise their skills, network with industry professionals, and elevate their storytelling to bigger screens. Artists and talent have shaped our state for generations. The future offers new opportunities to develop and share each Iowan's creativity. The Iowa Department of Cultural Affairs and its staff, with the Iowa Arts Council, Produce Iowa, and the State Historical Society of Iowa, are grateful for the opportunity to promote the stories of the people and places of our state.